So unlike Ukraine, to be clear, sir, U.S. forces, U.S. men and women would defend Taiwan in the event of a Chinese invasion.
Yes.
President Biden last fall saying for the first time that if
I love that clip because it's like he's answering the most serious question possible. Like, would you go to war against another country that also has nuclear weapons? And he answers it in the most like sheepish, confused. He sounds confused.
Right.
And he sounds like, yes. Like,
yeah.
It's not the kind of tone of voice you want to use when you're speaking about going to war with any country, let alone a nuclear power. Yes.
Yes. I know that was a little unceremonial.
And then, of course, classic Biden, his aides had to walk that back.
Right.
Because it's not official U.S. policy. At least it's not stated U.S. policy to go to war with China over Taiwan, even though it's de facto U.S. policy. So he was just being honest. But
yeah,
I guess his confusion came from the fact he couldn't remember at the time whether he was allowed to be honest.
Right, exactly.
About that question or not. So he was just like, yeah.
Like, what are we saying? Yeah, what are we saying on that again?
Yeah.
China invades Taiwan, the U.S. would send troops to defend it. It's an invasion many experts predict could happen in this decade. We got a fascinating inside look this week at how members on the House China Committee are gaming out war scenarios. In the sky, on the sea, China staging combat exercises, a show of force, a warning that a potential blockade of Taiwan could be coming. The Chinese army even releasing this simulation of how they'd attack the nearby island, a self-governed democracy that China claims as its own territory. But on Capitol Hill this week, lawmakers staged their own simulation.
Tonight is not about a desire for war. It's certainly not about playing frivolous games.
It's about prevent war games.
China committed.
It's about prevent war games.
I get it. That's a fun game.
That's amazing.
Prevent war games.
Prevent war games.
These aren't war games. These are prevent war games.
These dorks acting out their fantasy of a war and feeling tough from like the congressional chamber have to, realize maybe how ridiculous they look. So they have to pretend as if they're trying to prevent war. It's a prevent war game.
Right.
We're gaming out how to attack China so we can prevent war with China. It reminds me, when I was a kid, I'm not sure if I've told this story before, but it really applies to so many political development stories. Where one time when I was in third grade, there was a rumor in the schoolyard that people were throwing rocks. We're not even sure if it was true. So me and my friends developed a group called the Rock Stoppers, where like we gave each other code names, and we're like the aim of our group was to stop people from throwing rocks. And we started patrolling the yard, and we started doing it, and we couldn't find anybody throwing rocks. So we ourselves started gathering some rocks.
Wow.
And what we would do is we started gathering the rocks and kind of and started practicing throwing them. But the way we justified it to ourselves is that these were like defensive rocks.
Right.
Someone else
wow.
So the Rock Stoppers actually became the Rock Throwers.
Rock Throwers.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what? I don't know why.
Because we had to justify our existence.
Exactly.
We were now a group, and group mentalities and have incentives to keep the group going and give yourself some purpose. So much like Congress, they're a group. They're not really focused on any real issues. They serve their donors. Their donors are the military-industrial complex. So they have to serve their purpose too, which is to actually generate war. So how do they justify it? They're the war stoppers.
Right. But they're really the war throwers, the war starters. For some reason, it went into my head. Remember this game, Operation?
Yep.
I don't know why this came into my head, but when they're talking about war games, I immediately kind of thought of like, we're not engaging in war games. We're doing stop war games.
Mm-hmm.
It would be like if you played Operation and you're like, we're not playing Operation, we're playing Stop Operation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That poor guy in Operation does not look very.
He does not look very well. Yeah. Well, that's why they had to pretend that the goal of it was to stop the operation, not to actually operate.
Let's go back to this clip. Is there more?
Both went to the 1980s. Yeah, there's more.
Mike Gallagher and ranking member Raja Krishnamurthy set up the exercise with the Center for New American Security.
This game is going to be a Chinese invasion of Taiwan set in
the Center for New American Security. It's a classic, weapons industry funded think tank, very close with the Democratic Party, especially, but it is bipartisan. And they've done these war games before. Remember, like we played a clip from Meet the Press of a war game with China. Yeah. I believe that was CNAS as well, and Center for New American Security. And this is what they do. This is what they do. It's grown babies simulating war. That's what this is. Acting out their fantasies of a war.
Pretending they're not.
Yeah, all to serve their donors. It's
right.
It's a game indeed.
In 2027.
What exactly do we know right now about their mobilization effort?
Members from both sides of the aisle coming together, politics set aside. There's Virginia Republican.
Isn't that beautiful? Doesn't that bring a tear out? Coming together, putting politics aside to simulate a war with China. It's just so touching. It's moving. Wow. I'm so moved. I just knocked over my microphone.
You got so emotional about it.
And Massachusetts Democrat Jake Auchincloss, the members taking on the role of advisors to the president.
What have we communicated to expats and students who are in China right now?
This is part of what you get to decide.
That's Stacey Pettijohn, a senior fellow from CNAS, acting as the game master.
The chairman of the Joint Chiefs can't pick up the phone and talk to his PLA counterpart.
Correct. Unfortunately, General Holmes is cut off.
Retired General Mike Holmes is playing the role of chairman of the Joint Chiefs, laying out to members what military options there are.
The biggest benefit from fighting from a distance is that you preserve and protect your forces.
But diplomatic and economic options are on the table as well.
Wow.
See,
that makes it not real.
This is what children do. I mean, when children do this, it's fair. They're using their imaginations. They're simulating something. They're, pretending to be involved in a global war. Fine. This is what. But these people have not left childhood, right? So they still want to play with board games there and pretend as if they're generals and fighters and commanders, except they're elected representatives who are like elected to work on the policies of their constituents, and the interests of their constituents. Instead, they're acting out a war.
Scary.
And there's Ro Khanna. There's former East Lydiates guest Ro Khanna right there.
Yeah, he does look kind of bored though.
Our allies agreed to take
looks like she's at an auction.
With us, as a precursor.
Look how bored the guy in front of her looks.
Has there been any activity at the United Nations yet?
After debating how the U.S. should react, lawmakers took a vote announcing their move.
We will be standing with our friends in Taiwan. We have forces in the region that are pre-positioned. We're surging forces in the region. We are also prepared to impose maximum economic pressure in the event of an invasion, including sanctions against most major Chinese banks, including kicking China.
Look at the graphics. So the ABC News team felt compelled to make graphics. Sanctions against banks.
Yeah.
Kickoffs. Wow.
I know. It's like they're making an infomercial.
Yeah. Yeah. As if we're supposed to be excited by saying this. Wow, sanctions against banks. But wait a second. I thought this was a prevent war game.
Right.
It doesn't sound like they want to prevent a war here.
No, it doesn't. It's prevent war by practice war.
Yeah. Surging U.S. forces. That doesn't sound like he's preventing a war.
Right.
Off the SWIFT system.
But wait a minute. Chinese authorities, played by CNAS staffers, quickly counter, surging troops, forcing a communications blackout in Taiwan, and banning exports of electronic goods to the U.S.
So that means we are going after companies like Apple, Dell, HP. You want a new iPhone? Guess what? You're not going to get it.
Lots of questions,
really good acting,
of lessons.
Really committed.
It was remarkable to see all of you there working together. It's not a view we often get. We see you in hearings, we see you on TV, but this is a group that is really working together.
We're trying to. And again, ultimately, we're hoping to generate creative ideas that can pass this Congress for what we can do to enhance deterrence. So our hope is by doing something different, we generate more member engagement and more member ideas.
There's obviously lessons learned from Ukraine.
Yeah, look, he sounds like he's jamming in a band. We're trying to explore some different styles and try some new creative directions and see what we come up with.
Come up
with
cross-pollinate.
Yeah, maybe we can have it just like a low grade proxy war, not a full on war. Who
Right.
knows?
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, Martha is just touched by the bipartisan unity here.
I know,
it's
she can't
so
believe
moving.
it.
Yeah.
And one of them was the U.S. intelligence certainly believed Russia would be moving in.
Yeah.
But really off the mark in terms of the power of Russia and the power of the troops. Do you trust the intelligence on this one, Congressman?
I trust the intelligence community and their assessment right now. I think you have to just prepare for the worst and hope for the best. I think that's just the way that we have to approach this scenario.
And that is what they are doing.
And we love it.
Oh, I love
If
it.
you elected these people, did you elect them to go simulate a war with China? Did any of their constituents think that this is what they want their Congress member to do, is go act like children and simulate a war? And of course, China sees stuff like this. What do you think China's reaction is going to be?
Right. I'm sure they feel really represented by those play actors.
I mean, this is why there was just a headline saying that global military spending is at an all-time high. And obviously the war in Ukraine is a major factor, but it's also things like this. Like when China sees members of Congress from both parties coming together to simulate war, what do you think their reaction is going to be? They're going to logically conclude that the U.S. is serious about having a war one day, and they're going to act accordingly.
I love the idea. It's like, there's so much gridlock in Washington. There's so much partisan rancor. It's so beautiful to see people coming together to play war games.
It really is.